Hello, everyone.
So I just.
Mr. Downs.
Read that one up the front.
Hello there.
Thank you. There you go. Hello, Carlton.
Hello, Colonel. Hello, everyone.
Are you home or are you still traveling?
No, I'm back. I'm home
Good.
now.
Good.
I'll see you tonight at the joint, SIC.
Good. Good. Miss Hayes not she's on the committee.
Oh, yeah, she is. Oh, okay. Second. Lori Morgan. Yes. Yes. Yeah.
Just to join the letter, get me in. Still sick.
Yes. Yeah, we haven't named it years and years and years. Either of you know how to silence your iWatch with the new I always say it wrong. iOS that has been on you with the 17th. It's right now. So you can't do that. Yes, that's him. Previously, I just looked at no, I don't think it's red one. She's not.
I can do it, sir.
You never have to find your phone.
No.
I lose mine. I set it down. Yes. Here she is.
Now, it's now 2:30. I'd like to call the meeting of the Beaufort County Board of Education Finance Committee to order. It's March 14th, 2024. We are holding this Online. Okay. Is it working now? You're still getting echoes? Not from me. Mine's on mute. Okay. All right. It's a remote hybrid video conferencing. The meeting will be live streamed on the county channel. The requests for public comments, participation were accepted between 1 and 1:30 p.m. Committee members present right now are myself and Mr. Earl Campbell and Miss Elizabeth Hay. She is on. So we have a quorum. And the first item on the agenda is to stand and say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda. Mr. Campbell made a motion to approve the agenda. Ms. Hay, would you give a second?
Yes, sir. Seconded.
Thank you. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hay, aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Do we have any public comments? We do not. We also need a motion to approve the February 8th, 2024 committee meeting minutes.
Move that we approve.
Second.
Moved and seconded to approve the meeting minutes. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hay, aye.
Motion carries unanimously. Next item on the agenda is the monthly Board of Education report. I can tell you, it's coming up here shortly. Okay, so for travel, local travel, we are at 28% expended. For state travel, we are 37.7% expended. Out of state, we're at 39% expended. Our board meeting stipends, we're at 38.1% expended, and the total for the board budget so far this year is at 42.4%, which is well under budget for the year. Any questions on the board budget report? Ms. Hay?
I do not have any.
Mr. Kent, Mr. Dallas, do you have any questions about that?
No, sir. Trending very well.
Anybody, any other board members?
I don't see anybody else on.
Okay, all right. Then we'll move to the next item on the agenda, which is the transparency report. That's this month. It is 57 pages, and I have questions.
Okay, we're ready.
Are you ready?
We're ready.
All right. All right. There's my notes. First of all, we need to reach out to Amazon and ask for a rebate. We have 8 pages of Amazon purchases in this report. That's a considerable amount. When I see that many items, I don't look at the vendor as much as I look at what is being purchased by Amazon. And I didn't see anything in any of those 8 pages of inappropriate type items. But I did see some questions on page 20. And the concerns as payment, a couple payments to Deborah Larson. You look it up.
School occupational therapist.
Yes. And it says, that's what the OT is.
Yes, sir.
I said, is that overtime?
Occupational therapist.
Wait a minute.
And that's coded to a general fund special education, for occupational therapy.
Okay.
100, 123.
Okay. All right. Well, that same applies on page 20. Deborah Larson. Same.
Yes.
Okay. Now, how about page 32? Okay, then.
Well, that's just my graduate sound. All right. So it should be good now.
Okay.
Thank you. Frisco saves the day.
Page 32.
Yes, right.
And that is Jennifer Talbert.
That is also, she is a therapist, actually, she is. Let's see.
Jennifer
Page 30.
Talbot.
Yes, so if you recall, our former procurement specialist, Sandy Amsler, this is her daughter,
Oh, okay.
who is an occupational therapist as well for our schools.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. All right. And how about Kathy Baker on page 33?
Kathy Baker is also 33 is Baker School SLP, speech learning pathologist. The 100-126 account code tells me that's speech, a speech category. Yes.
Okay.
So they're outsourced services, and they are working directly with our students and for instructional purposes.
I'll tell you why those come up is because, you know, I have done this so many years. I know who the major vendors are. So I know what's normal, but anytime I see an individual and you know, it's a district office, I didn't know what OT meant.
Yeah, we could
Now I
probably
do.
expand that just as hair and put OCCUP TH.
That would be helpful.
So I can see how that would be.
Yeah.
Many of our therapy services are now, it's sort of like nurses moving into the contracted world or the traveling nurse world. That's happening a lot with our therapy services as well. So they're contracting, and that's oftentimes we have to supplement the existing staff that we have with some contractors, and these folks are right after.
I had no other questions in the report. Ms. Hay, do you have any questions or anything you'd like to see in this report?
I did actually, being a newbie, it is on page 44 and it rolls into page 45. And it is towards the bottom of page 44. It's the Sharp Electronics and it just says billable copies. And I was just curious what billable copies means in this particular purchase, because there were a lot of them. And I don't recall seeing it before.
So we have leases, individual leases with every copy machine or multifunction printer within the entire school district. So there's separate leases. And in addition to the lease, the contract states that we also pay a billable amount, an amount per copy. So it's the payment is a combination of a lease and a cost per copy. And the schools, we do allocate those out to whatever location is using that copy machine. So the schools would be responsible for paying the cost per copy at their level, district at our level as well.
Perfect. Understood. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay. So if there's no other comments, Mr. Dallas, do you have any comments on this report?
No, sir. Thank you for asking.
All right, let's move on to the consolidated report, and thank you so much on that consolidated report that you added that last column on there, terms of payment. That makes it very easy to understand, and you'll notice on the report, A is for annually, M is for milestone monthly, NR is non-recurring, and the Q is quarterly. So that helps when you look at this to understand why some of the amounts are different, and also, the billing is always, when the invoice comes in, when the bill is paid, is not the same day of the month, every month of every year. So, but that lets us know kind of what kind of an account it is. So are there any questions on the consolidated report? Okay, Ms. Hay,
None from me, thank you.
Mr. Dallas.
No, sir, I'm good. Like the definition.
Yeah, thank you. It's fine, this is great work. Appreciate it. All right. Next item is the ESSER update with dashboard. The floor is yours, ma'am.
Would you like to help me out here? And since this is your area.
That's right.
We've kind of, gotten used to this reporting, get the summary page all together, and it has the 3 ESSER grants that we started with. We're 86% of all of those, but we're at 79% left in ESSER 3, which is the only one remaining here. And we are projected to spend it all by September 30th, 2024. And so the summary page says that we had about $957,000 worth of expenditures for February, which is trending a little bit lower than what we had been, but February 29th was when we pulled it. That's when the checks were run. So we missed that last payment of that there. So, because I thought, wow. But,
So March 1st was a Friday, the AD run.
yeah.
Okay.
Mhm. So that's kind of where we kind of lost that part there. But then I just show you break down the largest areas of spending that you can see for the month. And we're very consistent in our spending moving through there, because these are things that are just reoccurring through our processes. And the detail in the PowerPoint just provides each of the activities, and we talked about it at the board meeting date. There's over 200 individual ones. We report on them all, but they're summarized in the themes of descriptions there. And we are seeing some encumbrances, which is why we have encouraged, and or especially the people that are over these programs, is get the spending done now, because we have to have the items here, and
Close out.
we're having some delays in like some of our supplies. So we're working on that. So that's why the encumbrances are there, haven't been paid, but they're expected to come for us there. But we are pushing, because we're trying to set a deadline. So we know that this will be coming. We can, if there's any little extra there, we'll put it to something that we know is coming as well with a new activity. And we are not planning to add at this point any new activities. We might budget with extra money
Sorry.
someplace, but we're not planning on adding new activities at this time.
Okay. All right. Mr. Campbell, do you have any questions about the report?
No, I don't.
Ms. Hay, do you have any questions? Ms. Hay?
Sorry, my phone is not cooperating. I do not have any questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dallas? Carlton, you're muted. Don't see him. Is Mr. Smith?
No.
Okay. I just have a warning. I have dealt with federal budgets for many, many years. And what you're doing is exactly the right strategy. It's getting you conferences so you can have it closed out, because on the end of the 30th of September, it goes away. You can't get it back, you can't ask for it later, it's gone. Where we have had problems in the past is in that panic time of trying to spend every dime. That's when shaky transactions occur. Yeah, it's better to turn in some money than have a shaky transaction that we have to explain and go through audits, and it puts our whole program in question. And then next thing you know, feds are down and we're looking at everything. So just
That's what we're trying to say, no new activities,
Yes.
everything that's been approved
Yes.
over and over and over.
But if you get down to that 11th hour and,
Something
minutes
didn't get
to
in.
go, don't
Don't
push it. Yeah, that's exactly. Thank you. Okay.
That's why we're trying to close out early in July and
We're not
not in
making-
September, so.
We're not making exceptions. It must comply with the activities
Yeah.
and with
We're getting a little
restrictions that
push,
we
yeah.
submitted from this to the state. And we know that the state is saying no, very restrictive of any new activities at this point. So we're just saying no new activities that must fit and comply with one of these activities that are already written.
Yes.
We can
Oh, yes.
move a budget transfer from one to another,
Right.
savings from one to another, but nothing new.
Perfect. Perfect. That makes me feel warm and fuzzy. Thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is cost center reports. Now, folks, this is 34 pages. And it's exactly the kind of data by school that I'd asked for. Salaries, principal by type, employee, total, the benefits, the contracts, substitutes, paraprofessionals, cleaning services, total purchase services, and then you have the supplies and materials, total supplies, and organizational membership, other things, people activity, other objects, to a total cost for Hilton Head Island Early Childhood Center, for example, $5,422,089. Now comes the evaluation of all this data. It would be very helpful if we could see kind of a graphical representation, and I would say by type. Have the elementary schools, and then have just a bar chart or a colored bar chart with showing what these 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 different categories are of the elementary school. So we can look at apples to apples comparison. And then for the K-8, that'd be just Robert Smalls and the Riverview. And then the 2 middle schools, or 3 middle schools, 4 middle schools, however you've got, just the middle schools, and then the high schools. If we could do that, but I'm going to spend a lot of time kind of going over this with my felt tip and looking at this so I can understand exactly how much we are spending for each of our plants of production, for lack of a better word. That's our schools. And what we're spending in. And I'm sure there'll be some questions. How come it costs more at this school than that school? So, but this takes a lot of analysis. But if you could give the total board, I think I'd like to hand this out at our next board meeting. In fact, if we, I don't know if we could do it right now. We can't do it by tonight, but
you mean for the joint meeting tonight?
no, not yet. We can't do it for the joint meeting. But the next board meeting, if we could have a copy of this exact document.
No, that will be ready for our April, because everything
Okay.
out of the committee goes
Okay.
straight
All right.
into
So
committee,
in
so
April-
they'll have that.
In April, we can give this to each board member to look at, and if you could pull together the kind of executive summary piece with that would really be appreciated. Okay. Mr. Campbell, you have any comments about this?
No, I don't. Everything is fine.
Ms. Hay, do you have any comments?
No, I just love this report, and seeing the information in this fashion is very helpful. So thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Dallas is no longer on.
No, and no other board members on. Well, I can't tell you how valuable for a data geek like me is. This is really good stuff. Thank you. And this goes with my good stuff file.
It's, you get one of those.
Stuff.
Okay, Carlton is coming back in.
Okay,
Must be having internet issues.
Carlton, did you happen to see the presentation?
He's still connected. Give him a second.
Okay.
Okay, he's on now.
Hey, Carlton, you were offline for a while, and we went through this wonderful full report with a cost breakdown of each one of our schools.
Oh, excellent.
Yeah, and so I asked that a kind of an executive graphic summary be presented to a full board at our next board meeting, as well as a complete list of all the expenses by school. It's very, very, a very good study.
Fantastic.
Okay, super.
Yes, sir.
We're going on then now to administrative regulations. District wellness is the
Yes,
first
sir.
item.
Okay, let me give you a little background on this one. As I was updating some of my administrative rules, and I have to lend it to our registered dietitian, Tanya Maselli, who is the nutrition group employee. She is the dietitian. She alerted me to the need for reinstating our district wellness committee. And so the first thing I did was go to the administrative rules and found that it was extremely outdated. It had last been updated in February of 2016. Prior to the nutrition group, our district food service accountant managed this program. So the last time the district wellness committee met was in January of 2022. So we're a little behind. He left in late in 22, and then we changed vendors and we changed a whole bunch of staff members and so on. So I have been working with the new planning committee, which includes our Miss Maselli, our registered dietitian, and our physical education coordinator, Missy Vogt. So the three of us make up the planning committee to reinstate the wellness committee. So the beginning stages of wellness committee involves physical fitness and nutrition. So I am responsible for oversight because I'm over food service, and Mary Stratos is also responsible as the chief instructional officer because she's over physical fitness and instruction to students. So when I read this, it was so outdated that it had prior names on the policy and so on. So I knew that there was a need. I passed this. There are actually two. There is a SS 42, and it's a few pages with staple there, and then an SS 42E, which is a smart snack in schools. They go together. They're on the same topic, but so the primary reason is of bringing it forward is that we updated, the three of us in the planning committee updated nutritional requirements, PE requirements, and other language that needed to be updated, as well as we sent it to legal counsel for updating, which is primarily what you see in the beginning with the purpose and non-discrimination clauses, and then a lot of the citing of laws and policies at the end. So lots of people have had probably 5 people have had input in the development of this, as well as we had contact with the state nutrition office to get their guidance as well. So primary changes in this document, changes are listed in orange, and some strike throughs to just show you where the edits are, but the majority of the changes relate to one, adding the non-discrimination clause, The smarter lunchroom technique, some of the programs offered by USDA, which is where this comes from. It's a USDA requirement that we have this program. It must be a part of every single school location. They must have wellness committees in the schools. They must, and that involves not only students, but also staff. So they have, they might walk before class in the morning. They might, have a room to help, calming room or a calming space for students inside of a classroom. They might have an activity that they go outside and blow bubbles, and they eat, try different fruits and fresh fruits and vegetables through our Fresh Fruits and Vegetables grant. So there's a variety of activities, and the schools are actually scored with points on all of the activities they have, and they can actually win. And the schools with the most points at the end of the school year can win $1,000 grant, and the grand prize winner can win a $2,000 grant. And we partner with MUSC Boeing, and they help us navigate through this wellness committee and the wellness activities. So this is just to bring things up to speed. We want to promote healthy food choices based on evidence-based practices. That's a change. Make sure that fundraisers on page 3, the top of page 3, sections 2, 3, and 4. Fundraisers must be, if they're during the school day, must be Smart Snack compliant, and they're not competing with the school lunch program.
No
So we
Krispy
don't
Kreme.
want Krispy Kreme donuts at 11 o'clock, and then nobody wants to eat a healthy lunch. So it's very restrictive what the requirements are. So if it's 30 minutes after the bell at the end of the day, then Kona Ice can drive up in the parking lot after 30 minutes after the end of the school day, or at a football game, or on a field day or something. But we don't want the non-compliant meals or foods to be competitive with our food, breakfast and lunch programs. So that is clarifying language that our fundraisers that don't meet those requirements are not permitted during that school day. Promoting, let's see, the physical activity minutes were actually opposite. So we needed to switch one. It said that all elementary schools shall provide students with 60 minutes of PE a day. It's actually supposed to be 90. So those were corrected by this vote, and 60 minutes of physical activity each week. So we corrected those. And the remainder of it is relatively minor, just language to prepare. I removed my specific name and phone number out of this policy, as well as Bonnie Allman, the former chief instructional officer. And then we, with Ms. Cartledge's advice, we added the CSHAC does have a triennial requirement of reporting to the state. And so we've added that as well. So in that policy, that's the primary, those are the major changes in that main policy. And then in the
And
smart.
also, Tanya, I just wanted to mention, I really appreciate that you and the dietitian put in here about we don't provide snacks to children that have allergies, free snacks and things like that. So we got it right in there. We're not,
Yes.
we're not serving those. Thank you.
And also we want to ensure that we are not serving homemade cupcakes and homemade items. They need to be free. They packaged from a location, and we know exactly what ingredients are for the students, because we may have some with allergies that have a reaction to homemade snacks. So we're very careful about that as well. So on the smart snacks item, again, we have the non-discrimination clause. That was primarily the only change to that SS 42E. No other changes for that one have been made.
Ms. Crosby, I need to give you the board policies. I have them on
Okay.
my other draft. I'll get that to the board. That page.
Well, they're on the first one, I think, the 42.
They are there.
So there, that one's fine. It's just
Is
a
that okay?
supplement. This is just a supplement to.
Okay, I just didn't know if you wanted it. or not.
No, that's.
Okay, if you're okay with it, that's
Mhm.
great, thank you.
So that concludes my update on that, the district wellness. That's just, these are for information only, don't require a vote of the board. Just notifying you of the changes we made in district policy.
Campbell, do you have any questions or comments? Ms. Hay, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I'm sure the dietitian will be on top of this, but my concern, which I've voiced to Ms. Crosby in the past, is simply things like dyes, high fructose corn syrup, aspartame, et cetera, in our foods that we're supplying to children, because they are linked to mental, emotional, disciplinary issues and obesity. So I'll reach out to the dietitian to ask her a few more questions as well.
Great, great, thank you. Mr. Dallas, do you have any questions or comments?
Yes, I'd like Ms. Hay to share that list of unhealthy items that she just named, because I should be following that myself. Seriously.
We all. should.
Anytime anybody needs health information, I'm here for it.
We'll be in contact, ma'am.
Thank you. Thanks, Carlton. Still don't have any other board members on. Okay, so are you telling me that this kind of sat in limbo for 8 years?
That's 2019.
No, the policy has not changed for this second policy. The smart snacks was updated in February of 2019. Mr. Colott last met with the wellness committee on January of 2022. So 2 years. The wellness committee has not met since that point in time.
Okay.
But the schools are still doing their thing. So our job is to make sure that every school is complying, and we will follow this policy strictly. We're putting a committee together, and we are getting ready to schedule the first meeting of the year. So.
Earl, it's been a long time since we've had an update on this. You recall quite a while. So how about at the board meeting, be prepared to come in and inform the board? I think it's, you agree?
Sure.
Ms. Hay, do you agree that we should bring it up?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And just a final note on it, the policy or the admin rule does require the school district to update the board annually on this. So I'm just going to add it to the food services OE that's in November. And so I can give an update to let you know where we are in the process, but we'll need time to meet and sort of revamp there's also a website that we have to get going again. So, and then my role with this, I'm trying to revitalize this committee, and then the dietitian will be primarily responsible for it. So I'm trying to build the structure for it again and get it passed on to them, and I'll be consulting with them. But we will update the board, and then we'll add it as part of our operational expectation of food service in November.
This is really, it's a very key point as far as I'm concerned. In preparation for a presentation I had to give, wanted to try to compare my high school yearbook to my graduating grandson's high school yearbook. And on a number of interesting facts, looked at the gender ratio of teachers in 1966 compared to now, which was dramatic. But I also went through and looked at my graduating class of over 1,000 students. And I just went through the pages and I said, I'm going to mark any child that I notice is noticeably obese. I didn't notice anybody noticing. I saw some, hefty folks, football linemen, that type of folks. But no obese. I looked at Carson's yearbook from Beaufort High and looked at his graduating class, and it was 18% that I just on looking said, oops, obese. That is shocking to me. It's also a concern that I get. I had community member come up to me and says, you know what you're serving for breakfast? For the free breakfast to students every morning? No, Pop-Tarts. They're getting Pop-Tarts. So, okay, so I checked into it. No, they're not getting Pop-Tarts. The good kind that I always used to take to the field, with the frosted mountain and everything. They're getting like a pastry shell with fruit in it, and it's not a Pop-Tart. And I reached out to the guy, said, no, it's not Pop-Tart. I said, what is it? It's a pastry. Well, I still don't like it. Give them a banana, you know. Oh, you know, I understand. But there is a lot of interest out there in this program. And I don't remember. I'm sure you probably briefed it in the last 5.5 years. I don't recall that. And I think this is a good thing to highlight. Thank you. You know, I wrote this. The only other thing is I'm really concerned about another ornament on your Christmas tree. You know, another committee,
Assignment.
another assignment, so on.
That's why I mentioned, birthing it and passing it along.
Okay.
So my role is to reinstate the committee,
Okay.
reform it.
Okay.
Fix the policy and pass it along to the next dietitian that will,
Okay.
will move forward with enforcing it at the schools. So.
Miss Hay, your hands up.
Yes, sir. I had a similar worry about Mrs. Crosby. I don't want her to get burned out because she does such wonderful work. But I was also going to say with your discussion about obesity, because I think that's something we're all seeing and very familiar with. But that was a red flag in one of the past reports to me, was that our nutrition budget has not increased at all. And people seemed excited about that. But what that was a red flag of to me was that we're giving possibly lower than optimal food to the children. So for example, a lot of pasta sauces these days, I mean, my son has gone to school in our district, and the pasta sauces can have sugar as the first ingredient. They can have high fructose sugar in bread. So this is one of the concerns I've had, especially when, you know, my kids are doing rec soccer, for example, and I look around at the field and the majority of the children are obese. So I am concerned about that. In terms of nutrition, it's a little known fact that 80% of what your body looks like is due to your diet, not actual physical activity. So anyway, like I said, this is one of those things I'm very passionate about. So I really hope that this committee and everything can work together to get our kids the best, you know, the best food that we can.
Thank you, Elizabeth. I appreciate that. That's good feedback. And all I can say, all I'm going to do is if they ever come up and want to put a Krispy Kreme in Beaufort, I'm against it. I can't go buy one. Okay, thank you very much. We'll go to the next.
OS 5 is the next one. It's budget transfers and carryover funds. So it is a 1-pager front and back, so 2 pages. This administrative regulation I've talked about for a little while. We have a challenge that it is, this had not been changed since 2001. That's actually a few months before I started with the school district 23.5 years ago. So we find ourselves, this is relatively very restrictive. The board does approve a total budget. And what we're looking for here is some flexibility that it currently does not exist. We are required to come to the board with budget transfers over $50,000 if they move across functional areas. When looking at, so I did some research and looked out at about 5 other school districts. We looked at Fort Mill, Horry, Lexington 2, Richland 2, and Lexington 1. And so we found that a majority of the school districts have a policy where they are able to move, that the superintendent and the CFO have the authority to move with budget transfers within the district's budget as long as they don't exceed the total approved amount by the board. And so that's the model that I feel like gives us the most flexibility to maneuver within the budget. If, for example, we have vacancies in one area, but have needs that are greater in another, and a teacher's salary these days plus benefits is going to be closer to $100,000. So I'm just looking, so I've made some adjustments to allow for that authority to transfer the budget amounts within the budgets, but to the limitation of what the board has approved, as we often do with capital funds and other funding sources. And then we'll internally develop, establish the director of procurement and budgeting has the authority. She approves or her staff approve every single budget transfer in the school district. So the limitation that I must exceed or approve every budget that has a line item over $5,000 is a significant burden on the staff. And so I have actually removed that, knowing that we have procedures in place to address every single budget transfer and the approval process that is documented inside of our enterprise system. So I'm requesting today to that those changes be reflected in the administrative regulation as part of the district's policies. Again, this one doesn't require board approval since these are not board policies, they're district policies, and just hoping for your support in that effort.
Mr. Campbell?
That's very good. No, I don't have any questions.
Ms. Hay?
I don't have any questions either.
Mr. Dallas?
Nope, I'm fine with this.
I concur. If I would have, as a director of a major Army school, if I would have had to gone to my boss to ask about a $5,000 shift in budget, he would say, "Why do you think I hired you? Don't come and bother me." It's our superintendent has a budget, and he's expected to stay within that budget, period. But how he moves it around, he bases it on his decisions, and that's why we hired him. And so I think this is absolutely essential. And but we do need to inform the full board. When I came on the board 3.5 years ago, there were 2 board members at least that wanted that kind of information. And that's my belief then and belief now. That's micromanaging the superintendent. So thank you. And let's make sure we have that on the agenda to bring the full board.
It will go on April 2nd.
On April 2nd, yes.
Our committee.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Fund balance policy.
Yes, sir. So this is actually a board policy and would so I will yield to the committee the direction at this point, and maybe a referral to the policy committee and that sort of thing. We have currently our fund balance policy, which is actually OE5 item number 1, and it's also a shall not develop at the very bottom, item number 2. So 2 areas that are recommending to be updated. And I provided an extra handout that's in blue that shows what the change would be. And the bigger packet is the policy with the change, and it's all the monitoring indicators that we would have originally sent to the board. So I'm going to, either one. What we're asking to do, the policy currently is that the district would develop a budget that maintains an unassigned fund balance or unrestricted fund balance. It's not designated for any particular purpose. No less than 10% is the current policy of the next year's budget expenditures, with a desired target between 15 and 17% of those expenditures. So I did some research again, looked at the same time I was looking at budget transfers. Fort Mill and Horry stuck out in particular. And there's a lot of attention on fund balance at the state level. And we had a session in a financial conference we had last week And there was a survey that went out. I asked for a copy of the survey. It has not been all fully completed and sent back to me, but I did my own research and found that many school districts have a number of months of fund balance as their minimum balance and no upper limitation. So I I'm requesting to modify the policy to have no less than a fund balance, no less than 2 months of the next year's budgeted expenditures, and no desired target that's to be listed. So that is common with the Fort Mill and the Horry County School District policies. 2 months is also 60 days, which is the GFOA, which is the Government Finance Officers Association best practices. And we follow the best practices of that organization. That's where we apply for our awards for our budget book and our financial report each year and receive where we receive those awards. So we use their best practices as our guide for our policies. So what I'm requesting is that we have a fund balance policy no less than 2 months and no upward requirement, knowing that any balance that I believe to be perceived as an excess balance would be brought forward to the board for decision making. I report the fund balance each year during the budget time. So we'll be discussing that coming up very, very soon. And then the shall not would just state the same message at the bottom of the policy. So just ask your consideration for this board policy change.
Mr. Campbell?
Need to make a motion?
He would make a motion to recommend it to go to the policy.
Committee, okay.
Yeah,
I'll make that.
so that this is what out of this committee, you all are asking the policy to.
So it's been moved to take this financial planning changes to the policy committee to be reported back to the full board. Ms. Hay, would you second that?
Absolutely, seconded.
And any discussion? Ms. Hay, do you have anything to say about this?
No, I do not.
Mr. Dallas, do you have any input?
Not at this time, sir.
I have one bit of input. We have to keep a fund balance sufficient so that we can take care of all our bills until tax revenue comes in. So that we do not have to get a tax anticipation note. I say this because one, it's good practice. Two, when I went to the Moody's conference that we had on the phone, and they went over our financials to judge what our credit rating would be. They looked at our economy, they looked at our population, they looked at our growth, they looked at our businesses, they looked at retiring, they looked at everything. Everything was positive. There was one negative. And that negative was that we had to get a tax anticipation note to tide us over from the 1st of July to approximately the 1st of December, because our fund balance was not sufficient to keep it up. And that tax anticipation note does not come out of our debt service fund. It comes out of our operations fund. It's the same fund. It's basically a teacher at minimum, one teacher salary that we have to spend in interest to get us through this wasteland where we get hardly any money from local taxes. So that's what the intent is, but that changes from year to year to year on what you have at the end of the fiscal year and 30th of June to what you're going to expect to need on the 1st of December. So you can't say, oh, that we need $50 million. Well, not every year you need $50 million. You might need $45 million. You might need $55 million. That's something that the financial management team has to come up with And we should not give them a cap or a minimal or anything else. Give them the flexibility to say, here's the intent. The intent is no tax anticipation bond be required. And I know this is it's a policy, but I'm going to press really, really hard. And I hope this committee supports that to say, let's make sure that our intent is made known on this policy. Okay, having pontificated long enough on that, all those in favor of sending it to the policy committee signify by saying aye. Aye.
Hey, I.
Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Okay, tax collection update.
Last but not least. So there, local tax collections come in to us, in late around the 21st to the 25th of the month. So this is as of January 31st, these collections or revenues, and actually, we probably should have, instead of using the word collections here, or collection rate, we probably should use the word revenue. Because what we're doing is just reporting, it's not necessarily a collection rate that the treasurer's office would use based on what's billed, but it is a measurement against the budget. So the revenues in local operations or general fund is 192.3 million. We budgeted 195.9 million. So we have received 98.1% of the revenues that we were expecting this year, which is a very healthy percentage. If you look across to the right, in the prior fiscal year, we received 95, right at 96% at this point during the year. And then in 2019, which was also, this was a reassessment year this year, but also 2019 was a reassessment year, and we collected, received 87% at this point. Now, we were short in 2019, and I think a pretty significant amount. I think that was the year we were short by $9 million. So we certainly don't want to be in that category. But what we're seeing now is a very healthy amount at this point during the year, and we'll continue to monitor it each month as we move forward. The next two rows are local revenues for debt service. We have received 90.5 million, and that is 98% of that budget. So also in debt, we have, we're in very healthy shape. And in prior years, last year we had 96%, and then in a reassessment year, 102.7. So, these are pretty unpredictable amounts, unfortunately. And we actually did this year in local operations rolled back 8 mills. And so it's despite that, the taxing, the growth in the mill value has increased almost 17%, which is in all the historical data I see, I've never seen an increase or growth in the mill value that much. We did expect like $1.6 million mill value per mill. Our mills in operations are 121.8. So, but the mill value came in at 1,689,000. It's projected to. So we're still in the neighborhood, but when you multiply that by 120 mills, it gets pretty sizable. So we'll continue to keep an eye on this, and we'll have more reporting to the board as we go through the budget process, and we'll incorporate some of this into the conversation at that time.
Campbell, you have any comments or questions? Ms. Hay, do you have any comments or questions?
No, I do not. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Dallas, do you have any questions or comments?
Not at this time, sir. Thank you for the query.
I want to thank you, everyone. I want to make some observation. Determining the value of the mill, determining what the impact would be of the 8 mill rollback that we instituted this year is not science. It's an art, kind of, but frankly, it's more serendipity. What we're seeing, I think, not only are people selling their house that they purchased for $400,000 or $200,000, that the new buyer is coming in and paying $400,000, and that's the new assessed value. You can't anticipate those kinds of revenue increases as a result, because some people will only get $50,000 more. Some people may lose a little money. So it kind of comes and goes, but you don't know, other than we all know that property values have increased. So we know it's going to go up. We don't know how much. But we also don't know of who's buying these properties. What we have happening now is not unprecedented in Beaufort County in my 15 years, is we have corporations now going out and buying brand new homes. And right in my, close to my neighborhood, brand new $400,000 homes, and they're buying them to rent. Because people can't afford the 20% down payment, young couples and so on, can't afford the 20% down payment or the interest rates and the resulting higher payments from those interest rates. Their business model is they will buy the property, they'll rent it out and get income from that property for about 10 years. At the end of 10 years, they'll sell the property and take the capital gains from the increase in value. Now that's happening in the new area by my house. It's also happening over there by Palmetto Bluffs and that area there. They're even advertising it that. New homes for rent. And that is the model. So those people are paying 6% tax, which means they pay our operations. So our operations revenue market is going to rise, but we don't know how much. We cannot anticipate. The only thing we can do is make sure that we don't underestimate so that we don't receive the revenue that we budget for. So we're in a very unique situation right now. And we also don't know how many people are going to have successful appeals. Everyone I've talked to that's tried to appeal said it didn't happen. But we don't know how many appeals come in. Now, these people pay the tax. And then if their appeal is successful, it comes back out. So this will be very interesting at closeout. And we won't really know where we stand to the nth amount until the end of, actually probably not till August, wouldn't you say? We close out?
Yes, late August, early September, yeah.
So we really won't know. So there's going to be people saying, wait a minute, you didn't roll back enough. Well, we don't know yet. We don't know yet. We'll see. And if we did, we can make adjustments later. In 2019, at the 87.8% or 87.1%, I went to see the auditor. I said, I'm concerned that we are only at 87.1%. He said, no, you're not. You're at 94%. What do you mean? Well, treasurer says you're at 94% of bills that came in. I said, well, yeah, that's the number of bills that came in, but I'm telling you that we got 87.1% of the revenue not the number of bills. And he said, well, that's not important. It's the number of bills. I said, that's only has logical sense if everybody pays the same amount, you knucklehead. But that's what we were dealing with 5 years ago. And he thought that if we had any excess, we would have to give a tax reimbursement back to the taxpayers. And we had the state department, who was it, the State Department of Revenue, came in and said, no, you don't. You just roll that amount excess over to the next fiscal year and adjust the millage rate for that next fiscal year accordingly. Now, we're not at that point to make that adjustment or figure out that until we see it close out what we actually have. But bottom line is very good financial prospects. And why that's so good is because we're trying to cope with the loss of all the ESSER funds and what we have done. And I will tell you that I don't want to raise taxes one bit, but we may not have to if the value of the mill continues to rise, so that existing taxpayers won't notice any difference. They'll get the same amount of tax, but it's the same amount of millage every year. But we now have a different environment in that we have spent money and now we have metrics to prove what that money got us as far as academic achievement. We have metrics to show what our after-school programs did and how the improvement of student test scores. We have metrics to show what our enhanced summer school has done and our enhanced coaching and others. We know that, but we don't have the funding anymore. We may be able to have that funding without raising taxes. That's the key piece here. We do not want to raise tax, but we may need to have more revenue to be able to utilize the lessons learned from the ESSER expenditures. So that's kind of a macro view of it. Any comments, Mr.? Ms. Hay, what do you think?
No comments on my end.
Okay, Mr. Dallas?
No, I think it's a good discussion of some of the possible outcomes. So I think you're right to say we should be prepared for that. You may be able to accomplish it without a tax increase, which would absolutely be beneficial at this time.
Yeah. As we near the next work session on March 22nd, we're building the presentation. We see, as we're building the budget, we're seeing a number of cost increases in the existing budget. We're seeing utilities rise. We're going to have a significant increase in custodial costs. We're going to see significant increases in the form of in salaries because of mandates from the state on teacher salaries, benefits going up 12% on health insurance on the district side budget. So keep in mind that there are a lot of other unknowns at this time, other increase, or some of them are knowns. We are predicting some significant increases in other categories because of inflationary reasons. So just wanted to put that out there for consideration as well.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, absolutely. Thank you very much. Future topics? Ms. Hay, do you have any future topics?
None from me.
Thank you. Carlton, do you have anything you'd like to have discussed later?
The ones I've suggested have been captured in another committee meeting, so I'm fine with what we've discussed here.
Okay. Great.
Nothing to add at this point, sir.
Do we have any reports or anything we need to look at
Yes.
other than our normal?
Did you have some?
No,
Okay.
I was just gonna ask a question, because I was watching the state talking about teacher raise. And that they have some money Now, all you kind of gonna get in there.
It's hard to say. We will probably get a lower percentage than many other school districts because of our index of taxpaying ability. We have been told that we will see state revenue information this week, and today is Thursday, so we have not seen it yet. And it's hard to say whether what we're going to see is due to teacher salaries or health insurance or something else, because they all roll it all into one now, and we can't distinguish between any of those areas. But we do expect to get some increases, yes, sir, but not enough to fully fund everything they're going to vote on in the upcoming months. Mhm. I do have two items. The cost center graphics will be one, and administrative rule OS 37 and OS 37R. It's a food service at administrative rule. I edited it in October and I failed to bring it forward, so I'm going to have that ready. It addresses mostly alternative meals and the collections of unpaid meal balances. So that's the topic, and I have it already, and Miss Cartledge has already been given it for review. So those should be relatively simple. I'd like to keep this one at a minimum because we're going to be all working on the budget to try to wrap it up.
Right.
So I'd like to keep it with the normal items, plus those two if we can.
Very good. What day is, it's good.
So, April. Which our next meeting should be April 18th.
18?
Oh, the 11th, the second, and that's spring break.
The spring break is the week of the 15th through the 19th.
Okay, so, April
Is
11th
that-
is still
is that
fine at
accurate?
2:30.
Yeah, that's right.
April 11th, is that all right with you?
Yeah, that's fine.
Ms. Hay, is April 11th okay for you for the same time?
Yes, well, yep, that was my next question was time. That's perfect.
Perfect. You got it then, April 11th. Nothing further, by unanimous consent, thank you very much. A good meeting today, and we will call the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks, everybody, for a great meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay,